Okay, guys, here we are in the section dealing with if else, and else statements. And if you notice, I'm in the if, else, if, and else statements.py file, and we're beginning at the very top of this thing. But what I want to do is I want to kind of integrate this in a different fashion. So let's go ahead and say Python 3. And what I want to do is I'm actually going to show you guys how you can test a script. Now, this isn't necessarily the most straightforward way of doing this, but it does offer us some help with regard to being able to see how things work. So if I come in here and say A equals 3 and B equals 10, just like we talked about in our analogy here, and here we got A equals 3 and 5, and I just did them individually. What I can do is I can say if, and I can say if A is less than B, and then what will happen here is you'll notice that it's giving me the requirement to enter the rest of the syntax. Now, if I say print test, and I hit enter, notice that it gives me an error condition. And the reason it gives me an error condition is that I did not indent. So anytime I have a statement like if A is greater than B, I have to tab over before I write the next command. So all I'll do here is I'm going to say print, and we'll say A is less than B, and we'll put this over here. And I could continue writing. I'm not going to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit return one more time, and it's going to execute this script. And since A was less than B, it actually printed that value. Now I'm going to actually re-enter these two fields. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use an LIF, or ELIF, and I'm going to say if A equals, B, colon. Now I got to come back over here, and I'm going to say print A equals B. And then I'll just hit the carriage return, and it'll execute the syntax. Now notice it didn't print this. Why? Because this condition was not true. Now what if I have a third tier to this? So if I come in and I say if A is less than B, print A is less than B. If A is equal to B, I'm going to go ahead and say print A equals B. And then what I'll do is I'll come over here and I'll say else, colon. And I'm going to say print this is the else loop, or else section. Now it should not print it because it's not true. So this is actually saying if A is less than B, then print that value. If it's not, and it's equal to A, print this value. If neither of these conditions are true, print this one. So as here, if I came up here and we modified this one more time, and I changed the value of something like A, so if I come over here and say A is 100, and now if I paste these in again, so I'm going to see if I can't just grab all of this with the column grab. That's not what I want. So I'm holding my Alt down. That's going to give me block copy. And I'll copy it, and then I'll paste it. Let's see if that works for me. Paste it. All right, there we go. It goes in, and it's going to say this entire section. Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually put the right value in here. So I'm going to say B, or A is greater than B. So that's going to be the straight through logic. Now this is directly from this portion of our screen here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. I'll hit it one more time, and it's going to say A is greater than B. Now the reason that it prints that is because neither of these two conditions are true. So if I copy and paste this entire thing in one more time, but this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the value such that we'll go ahead and make A equal to B. So A equals 100 and B equals 100. I'll paste the script back in, I'll hit enter, and now it's going to tell me that A equals B. So this is a very, very useful tool when it comes to taking a look at things. But what we really want to do is, let's write a script. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to, I'm going to create a new file. I am going to make that file a Python file. So we'll say Python. And I'm going to go ahead and save it. And we'll call it, I'm putting it in MyPython, and I'm going to call it my second VOD script. And there it is. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and write this. So I'll just go ahead and put in a comment in here and say this is my second script. Now in this value, what I want to do is I want A to equal input, and I'm going to say please enter your age, colon. And then I am going to say B equals, and we will come up with a criteria here. So let's say 100. So now what I want to do is I'm going to create my statement. So I'm going to say if. Now notice that the interpreter sees if as a keyword. So I'm going to say if A is less than, and we will say 10, colon. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, notice how it automatically inserted the tab for me? That's why it's so cool to have an editor. I'm going to say print, you are too young to play. Okay, now notice it assumes that everything else I want to do is going to be under this statement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Shift Tab to go back, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say that if, let's see, we'll say not if, but we'll say ELIF, and in this instance I'm going to say A is equal to, well, let's say yeah, you know what, we'll even get rid of the comparison. So just for the lab or for this walkthrough, we'll say if A is let's see, equal to, no, we'll say if A is greater than 100, greater than, see, I don't want to come up with a dual match condition, so we're going to say if A equals, and we'll say 52, I'll say print, actually I didn't do the colon, you'll notice that I had to hit the tab, and that's because I didn't do the colon. So now it'll actually go here, I'll say print, and I'll say you are just right. And then I'll say Shift Tab, I'll say if, well, let's just go ahead and just do an else statement. So in this instance I'm going to say else, and what I'll do is I will say print, you are old. So the assumption here is that if you're less than 10 years old, you're too young to play. If you're going to be 52 years old like I am, you're just right. And as a escape all, if this isn't set up, you're actually too old to play. Now the problem with this is that we're missing something. So what happens between 10 and 52? So we'll play with that. But right now, this is my script. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save this script. Now I've got a couple of options. One of them is I could highlight the entire script. I can right click, and what I can do is I can say run the Python file in the terminal, and we see here it's executing the Python in the terminal, and I'll enter my age. So I'll say my age is 5. And what we see here is we actually have a value here. Now what is the issue here? Well, the output, the value, the error condition says that the less than or greater than symbol is not going to be supported in instances of strings and integers. So think about what I'm doing. Remember I said that when we use the input command, it is going to end up being a string. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and say if the string of A, I'm sorry, not string, but the integer of A, let's try that, is less than 10. So let's rerun the script. I'll go ahead and save it first. So save. So I'll highlight it all, and then what I'll do is I'm going to run the script one more time. Run the file in the terminal. Here's my age. I'm going to say I'm 3. So down here I'll say I'm 3. You're too young to play. Let's run the script one more time. We will say run file in terminal, and let's say I'm 52. 52. Okay. It says you are old. Now, what happened here? In the value, I said I was 52, and it says if A equals 52, it should have printed you are just right. So what happens if I put in 51? Notice it's saying I'm old. Well, the thing that I want to look at here is going to be what is actually happening with the script. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the entire script, copy, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to now type Python 3, and I'm going to paste that entire script in. And let's see what happens when I hit enter. It's going to look at the value here. So the integer input A, invalid literal for A with base 10. Oh, I know what's wrong. See, the value here is it's, when I created this, I did not go ahead and use the casting for each of these comparisons. Alright, so let's try it one more time. So what I'll do is I'll grab the entire script. I will right click, and let's see if I can run it in the terminal one more time and see if we get what we want. Okay, so I need to exit. Get out of it. Now run it. So again, I'm trying to demonstrate to you that things aren't necessarily as they appear. So we'll type in 52. And it's going to say AA. So what did I do? I did not use the right value. So over here I've got to say integer. Now, I'm trying to call your attention to the fact that if you pay attention to the colors and the syntax, the system is actually going to give you quite a bit of help. And also, a lot of times you can see things in the debug console if something is actually wrong, but we'll talk about that in the actual class. So what I'll do right now is I'm just going to say Control-A, copy, and actually we'll just execute it this way. So we'll say run the file in the terminal. I'll hit 52. Yeah, I'm just right. So the problem was in the configuration and the setup here, I had not structured my logic properly. Now there's still a gap in here, but what if I wanted to run this as a script? So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and save one more time, and I'm going to just come in here and say that I want to execute that script. So I'm going to say Python 3, and we'll talk about how to make things runnable by shebangs, but I don't do that because I bounce between different versions a lot. So I'm going to say my second Python script, and here we go, enter your age. I'll say 1000. Say you are old. So if we take a look at that, that's exactly what it was supposed to print if nothing else was true. But what if I am greater than 10 but less than 52? So if I run the script again, let's say I'm 53. Notice it still says I'm old because neither of these two conditions were true. So that's basically what we're looking at. So what I need to do is I would probably need to have a catch-all in here that is going to basically give me another value. So I need to say if I am going to be less than or equal to. So let's try that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter a new line. It's going to be an if-else line, well, an else-if, excuse me. And I'm going to say that the integer of A and I am going to say is going to be less than or equal to 51, colon, print, you are just right. Now we have to think about what's going to happen here. So let's go ahead and save this. Save. And then I'll just execute it down here, same way we've been doing. All right, so let's say I'm 51 years old. Now it says you are just right. You are just right. Now I type the same thing. So let's see, you're, instead of saying here, I'll say you are a little young. Save this script. Execute this script. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 51. You're a little young. What if I'm 11? You're a little young. What if I'm 53? You're old. So basically you can see here where I have embedded a number of if-else comments into this script. We've written a script, we've executed the script, and we are well on our way to developing the fundamental level of knowledge necessary to be able to look critically at the values inside of the data types that we'll be working with in this course. Now, to go back over to the configuration, I'm not restricted to just what I did. I could have actually done comparisons. So I could have done, if my age is less than 0 or my age is greater than 99, I could have given it, say, something like an invalid age or out of range. And I highly recommend that you guys get in and start playing around with some of these scripts and some of these statements and take a look at exactly what your options are. And these are employing some of the more advanced features, using strings and using regular variables. And we could do everything from determining whether or not something is even or odd and things along those lines, and that's all covered in the scripts that you guys see here. Actually, I'm in the, we've got the truthiness operator. So you got lots of different things that we can look at. But in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at loops and ranges, because loops and ranges are extremely useful, because a lot of times we find ourselves as network engineers having a list or a dictionary that is going to actually contain all of the information about the devices and the resources that we want to control. What we want to do is we want to be able to learn how to take that information and pull out individual components for the purposes of being able to act on it via some type of programmatic means. All right, so we'll talk about loops. Specifically, I think we're going to begin with for loops and ranges in the next video set, so I will see you guys there. Till then, I hope you're having fun. I am.